Record? Okay, great. All right, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Linda from the Upper Saddle River Library. We have Michele back from MahJLife. Once again, we were just saying this is her third year running, I think at least third year running, where
Mhm.
she's come on in and tried to help us figure out this game called Mahjong that we all, if you're here and watching, I know you enjoy it. I am recording this and I will send out a link. It will be posted on the Upper Saddle River Library YouTube channel. And I will send out a link to everybody, email you a link after it's over. So with that, I'm going to let Michele take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate you inviting me to come and share about some of my top tactics to help you master this new card. And we are in the second week of June, I'd say. So, what is that? That's about, I suppose we're about 12 weeks. How many weeks has it been? So people should be a little more comfortable with the card. How's everybody feeling with the new card? I wish I could see a show of hands. Maybe you could put a one in the chat if you're feeling, let's say, if you're feeling still a little uneasy about the card, and put a two in the chat if you're feeling confident. One if you're uneasy, two if you're feeling confident. Okay, good, good. So I'm hoping that what I share, we've got a bit of half and half, which is fine, but I'm hoping that what I share with you today will help simplify your decision making, no matter what card you're looking at, whether you're just transitioning onto the new card, or whether you're a new player to the game and you're still struggling with how to get started when you first get your dealt hand. The focus of today is all on hand development, the art of hand development, because it is an art. I want to share my screen with you and we'll get started. Let me get this presentation in presenter mode. And also, let's see, where did, I can't see my Zoom window. Oh, here, Zoom window. Okay, now I'll hopefully be able to share. Where's my screen here? What do you guys see? Do you see my,
It says it's that, yep, we've got it now. We've got
okay,
your first slide.
okay, the first slide. Okay, good, very good. All right, so here we go. The art of hand development. It is an art form, and hopefully what I share is going to help you make those initial decisions when you first get your drawn hand, basically what we're given to work with our own little masterpiece that we're trying to create when we get those random tiles. So I want to, of course, say thank you so much to Upper Saddle River Library for inviting me to speak. Linda, I appreciate you contacting me again this year. I enjoy working with you and your group, and you'll have to let me know at the end if you found this helpful. I want to ask a question before we get into the nitty gritty of this, and that is, when you first get your dealt hand, do you look at your tiles and you think, oh, I don't know what to do. I have nothing. Does anyone ever have those kinds of thoughts going through their head when you see these tiles? You're looking at the tiles and you just don't know what the first step could be. One of the most challenging things to do is to figure out a direction to go. And when you're given the National Mahjong League card, there's always that desire inside, that urge to pick a hand, because it's like having a menu in front of you where you got to pick something, and you really don't. You don't need to pick anything yet. You've got those randomly dealt tiles, and you've got to have some kind of a direction to go, some kind of a target to hit. And I'm going to share some things that hopefully will simplify that process for you and ease that anxiety a little bit and help you feel like you've got a new way to look at the game, at least getting started anyway. I want to share the concept overall of how I play this game, and it's using a method called strategy by wall. This is something that I learned from Tom Sloper. He is a Mahjong guru. He's played many other games and other versions of Mahjong, and he had some experience playing chess, and he adopted a begin game, middle game, end game tactic to Mahjong, and it resonated with me. So I'm going to share a little bit about that with you today because it's a really good way to pace yourself in the game. The idea is that when the tiles in the wall are dealt, that's the first wall that gets depleted. And then you end up with all the tiles in the racks, and you're left with a little wall in front of east rack and then another wall that is shorter depending on where east breaks the wall. So that is what it looks like during the Charleston. Everyone's got tiles in their hand, and then we're passing tiles between each other. And then once East discards, there's that short wall. That's called the begin game, and it's about 7 picks. So that first little wall there, that's when you really want to try to solidify your direction of where you're headed, what the strength of your hand is. And then we're going to talk about that as we go. Then the third wall, this is called the middle game, and it's about 40 tiles. And then, and then we have the fourth wall, which is the red. And as you're thinking about that as the foundation, the wall in play, there's also phases of the game. So the first phase of the game is the Charleston. This is when we pass unwanted tiles with each other. And then we have the play where East discards the first tile. That's actually the beginning of the official game. And then we have the pay. So there's 3 parts of the game. The reason why the Charleston is such a big part of the pie is because this is where the transformation typically happens if you make the right decisions at the right time. And I'm going to give you 3 tactics to help you leverage the tile passing that go around to help you with the transformation. So when you get to the play, you're only a few tiles away from a hand. That's the goal. So the purpose of the Charleston is to expedite hand development. If you think about it, you're getting up to 21 tiles in 7 passes because, you know, after the first right, and then you go across and then you do the left, someone could stop the Charleston. So in that case, you're only going to get 9 tiles because you get 3 at a time. And then also somebody could pass blind, and you would still be getting 3, but they may not be benefiting if they're shorting themselves tiles. So that's why I say you get up to. Now, if everybody agrees to keep going, you could see more tiles with the next round of passing. Second left, then across, and then right. And then, of course, you get to do the optional across. So you can have up to 21 tiles in those passes. And if you think about it this way, I think it is more impactful. And that is, each one of those passes is like 3 picks from the wall. And sometimes you would be playing with people who are not defensive passers, and you may get some great tiles. Maybe you'll get even a pair or a flower, or you might get like numbers that fit right into your hand. You could also be playing with people who are defensive. So it really is going to depend on the type of players that you're with as far as the keepers that you're able to gather. But it is a great opportunity for you to expedite hand development. So that is the purpose of the Charleston, expedite hand development. And you want to try to do all the passes if you can. We're not going to talk too much about exercising Charleston options. I have a presentation on that. If you're interested, you can search for exercising on my wiki, and you can find a wiki article about the different decision making that you can do with the Charleston. But you want to try to do the full Charleston because you want to leverage all those tiles that can transform your hand. With hand development, the first task is to target the strength of the hand. And when you're looking at your dealt hand, you've got to learn how to identify the strength. And we're going to talk about 3 tactics that you can use to simplify that process. But you want to choose a category that you can focus on. And that category is going to help you eliminate too many options. You want to drill in to at least 1 or 2 categories. And I know sometimes it can be a little overwhelming looking at all the options on the card, but just think about the category that will use most of your tiles or the strength of your hand, and you'll be feeling more confident by staying at category level, not going down to the hand level. You don't really need to look at hands until you run out of discards. After you target the strength of the hand, then you gather tiles. This is when during the Charleston, you're getting passes and you're going to keep tiles that you can use for whatever category you've chosen to focus on. And eventually you're going to then build up, because usually you end up with maybe singles or maybe a couple of pairs if you're lucky. Eventually you need to build up, because if you look at the card, there are a lot of options where you have pungs, kongs, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind. You got to build up. A lot of times you got to have that vision of where the hand is going to go, because you're not going to start with a hand. Typically, sometimes you might be blessed with that, but more times than not, you've got to build with the end in mind. And then all along the way, you're going to defend. So when you are after the Charleston, this is where we are right now. We're after the Charleston. East is going to discard, and you want to target the strength of the hand. So let's just step back for a minute and talk about 3 tactics when you get that dealt hand. The first tactic that I want you to think about is to optimize. Optimizing is when you target a multiple, and a multiple is pair, pung, kong, depending on what you have in your hand. Just the other day, I had a kong in my hand, and I had to figure out how to make that kong work. Typically, you might have a pair, but sometimes you could have a pung or kong. So you want to target multiples, because every hand on the card uses them. If you look at the card, even right now, you can see at a minimum, you've got singles and pairs in that bottom right category. Everywhere else, you have pungs and kongs, different combinations of those with maybe a pair and even some singles. But for the most part, you're going to have pungs and kongs. So if you target those multiples, you're going to optimize your potential to have a good transformation. So that first tactic is optimize. You can see here we've got a pair of flowers and a pair of 4s. So whatever you do here, you would target those multiples and choose a category that will use them. So in this case, we could maybe play 2, 3, 4 of some kind, and even take that phrase and just tuck it in your mind. Say to yourself, of some kind, because you don't need to pick a hand. We could pick a hand if we wanted to. We do have a hand in here. We could maybe play the 3rd hand down, for example, 2, 3, 4 dot with a pair of flowers. But because we have so many discards, we really don't need to pick a hand. If you think more about it being, I'm going to try to play something with the 4, maybe 2, 3, 4 of some kind, and that kind of takes the pressure off. You don't need to pick a hand as long as you have discards, because we're gathering. We're still gathering tiles that can give us fodder for whatever we do with flowers and the 4s in this case. And then here we're going to discard maybe the West, the 6, and the 9. Those are clear outliers in here. So 2, 3, 4 is what I would focus on. And I wouldn't pick a hand until we have more keepers. So optimize is the first tactic. The next one is to maximize. And this is when you use most of your tiles for whatever category you can use. So for example, with these tiles, we have a lot of evens. There's a little bit of 2, 3, 4 in here as well, but you could play evens and do okay. 2, 4, 6, 8, you see 3 2s, 2 4s, 2 8s. So that might be a good 2, 4, 6, 8 hand. And as I say, you could even do 2, 3, 4, 5 even and still probably be okay. But you would maximize by doing 2, 4, 6, 8, or even 2, 3, 4, 5. Choose a category that would use most of your tiles. And then you could discard, let's say, the dragon, the 1 bam, and maybe the 3, and still be able to do some kind of a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 2, 4, 6, 8. So that would be the second tactic, maximize. Choose a category that uses most of your tiles. And incidentally, in this case, we have no multiples to target. So that's where you want to look for the predominant pattern. In this case, the 2, 4, 6, 8. And then when a multiple forms, which more times than not it will, you reassess and start over and target the multiple, because American Mah Jongg is a game of multiples. So you start with the end in mind. You got a multiple here of 5s, so we start over. And now we focus on the 5s, which leads us to 2, 3, 4, 5. So before we were focused on 2, 4, 6, 8, then a multiple formed, which then would allow us to play 2, 3, 4, 5, leveraging the pair of 5s. So that is maximizing. And here, because we're targeting the multiple, we're also optimized. Optimize and maximize. We could maybe discard the 2 bam, 1 crack, 8 dot. That would be a fine discard. The next one is to streamline. Streamlining is when you play consecutive run. Consecutive run is a powerful category on the card. Now, that's not to say that you should always play consecutive run, because it could get a little boring if all you ever do is play consecutive run, but it is a powerful category, and there's a reason for that. Here, though, we have a pair of 5s, so we would want to do 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. There's even a 6 over there. And again, we would do of some kind. We don't need to pick a hand because we've got discards. We could pass East 7, 1 and still gather more 3, 4, 5, 6, and then see what we're able to gather, get more fodder to help you make a decision. So the 3 tactics are optimize, maximize, and streamline. And if you look at all the tiles that we have to work with, these are all the tiles. You can see that we have 3 numbered tiles, 1 through 9. And these, because they make up a majority of the tiles we work with, there's built-in flexibility and power there, because you have a range of numbers to go up and down. So for example, with a 1, you can go up 2, 3, 4, 5. From a 2, you can go down 1 and up 4, 3, down 2, up 4. And you can see that the closer you get to 5, the more wiggle room you have. And then the closer you get to the edge, the more constricted it is. So if you can drive your range to the as close to the middle as possible, and you have that built-in flexibility, that's the power of streamlining. That efficiency. So if you can, with your hand, optimize, maximize, and streamline in one hand, you have what I call a power play, and a very good chance probably of ending well with the Charleston and having that transformation that you're going after. Any questions about optimize, where you target the multiple, maximize, where you choose most of your tiles for a given category, and then streamline, where you're focused on consecutive run? Those are my top 3 tactics. Does anybody have any questions about those? Okay, so I want to give you a sort of a litmus test, not only to help you understand or see your own progress with hand development during the Charleston, the choices that you make, but also to help you with expectations, and even give you an idea of how much risk you can take in the game based on the results of your decision making during the Charleston. If you have more than 4 discards after the Charleston, you're likely going to be an underdog for that game. And if you have 4 discards, you're likely going to be a contender. If you have fewer than 4 discards, you are likely to be a front runner. Underdog, more than 4. Contender, 4 discards. And then a front runner, fewer than 4. Remember these 3 positions and then think about the level of risk you can take. For an underdog, you want to take a low risk approach. You've got to have a stronger hand before you say claim a discard to make an exposure. If you have lots of discards, you may not even at this point know what hand you're playing because you've got to gather more tiles. If you are a contender, you can take a little bit more risk because you have fewer discard or fewer, you have only 4 discards, let's say. And then if you're a front runner, you're close to whatever category or hand that you've chosen, you can expedite hand development and try and stay in front of the rest of the players by claiming discards and playing assertively if you're a front runner. Underdog, contender, front runner, and take the relative risk as you continue to develop your hand. And incidentally, your position can change during the game, both going up or back, depending on what happens at the table. So let's just look at a couple of examples to help kind of visualize underdog, contender, front runner. This is after the Charleston. We have a flower, 4, 5, 7 in BAMs with a pair of 5s. We have 3, 4, 5, 7, 9 with a pair of 3s and a 3, 4 in dots. So with these tiles, we could maybe play some kind of a consecutive run hand. We could play 3, 4, 5 probably and leverage the 3 and the 5. We don't have any 1s, so I wouldn't consider playing little odds, let's say. Maybe you could play big odd hand, 5, 7, 9, but that would use fewer tiles. I would say this player would be an underdog. And I would probably discard a 7 ban, 9 crack, and maybe the 3 or 4. Usually I don't pass like numbers because I think that it's almost as risky as passing a pair. So I probably wouldn't do that. There is a lot of 3, 4, 5 in here, and you could maybe even play that 3, 4 pair hand, 4th hand down. That is consecutive, even though it's in the singles and pairs category. This hand is set up somewhat close to that hand, but I probably wouldn't play that myself. I'd rather still gather. So I'd say there are just too many discards. So this player would be an underdog. Here's another example. We have a couple of pairs of dragons, and then we have 5, 6 crack, pair, and a 7, 8. So here they're sitting pretty nicely for some kind of a 5, 6, 7 hand with or without dragons. They could maybe play the 6th hand down under consecutive run. They would only have 3 discards if they were to play that. So they have 3 discards here. I would say they would be probably a front runner, but they even have their pairs there, but they still have some gathering to do. I would say they're probably contender or maybe a front runner because there's really nothing they can do until they get that more 7s. So they still have a little bit of gathering to do. Then here we have 5, 6, 7, 8. This hand is set up very nicely for the second hand down in mixed suits. 5, 6, pair, and then a pung of 7s and an 8. This player would be a front runner. They have only 2 discards and they have jokers. So if you ended up with something like this after the Charleston, you would claim every discard and play to win before anyone could even catch a breath, probably. This player would probably win the game with this kind of a hand. So just remember that an underdog would be if you have more than 4 discards, a contender would have 4 discards, and a front runner fewer than 4 discards. And then take relative risk. Underdog, low risk, contender, moderate risk, and then a front runner, regardless of risk, push to win. So I want to talk now about the begin game. This is when East discards that first tile. And everyone is now, after the Charleston, identifying what their position is. Are they an underdog, contender, front runner? And how much risk are they going to be willing to take here? this is when you're going to stay at the category level for as long as you can. Now, if you're a front runner, you probably already know what hand you're playing. If you're an underdog, you probably haven't, you're still probably at the category level. And maybe even if you're a contender, you may still be at the category level, and that's okay. You want to stay at the category level for as long as possible. Keep any supporting tiles regardless of suit, because there are way more mixed suit hands on the card than there are in one suit. So gather regardless of suit. Then you're going to start narrowing down the categories if you're in between categories, and you're going to continue to look at the strength of your hand and whittle out discards that won't fit your hand. And we're going to talk a little bit about discard planning in a little bit. Some of the considerations that you want to think about are, in your hand, do you have gaps? So for example, a gap would be a missing block. If you're, say, playing 3, 6, 9 and you have no threes, but you have lots of sixes and nines, I wouldn't even consider playing that category. Instead, I would look to hold maybe sevens and eights and switch to 6, 7, 8, 9 if I have no threes. So think about gaps in your hand and try to move the hand to a different category where you'll not have gaps. Also think about the weaknesses in your hand. A weakness would be something like if you need 2 pair and you have 2 singles, those would be weaknesses. Or you may have a pair where you need a Kong. That would also be a weakness. So some of the decision making that you have are going to be based on the weaknesses in your hand, both with gaps and then singles pairs that need to grow into bigger blocks. And then also, as the game progresses in this begin game, you want to think about how the exposures and discards are going to impact whatever category or hand you've chosen to play. And if you don't have any exposures, you'll be able to stay adaptable based on what is happening at the table. So try to stay concealed and try to stay at the category level until you have strength in your hand to help you make that decision of pushing to continue hand development. During those first 7 picks, if you've made little to no progress, you may consider yourself to be an underdog, depending on how many discards you have. If you have made greater progress, you could even bump from underdog to contender, or even contender to front runner. So consider the amount of progress you will have made in those first 7 picks and adjust your position accordingly, and then take that level of risk that is relative to your position. Underdog would be low risk, contender moderate risk, and front runner would be pushing to win regardless of risk. And that risk is going to be if, let's say, you draw a tile that maybe an opponent might need. Very early in the game, you may be the only one way out in front, so you can discard some risky tiles considering that you're a front runner. But you also have to think that somebody else could be a front runner at the table. You never know. In the end, you got to trust the process. American Mah Jongg is a game of multiples. So if you target multiples and maximize the use of your tiles for any given category on the card, you're going to optimize your potential to have a transformation after the Charleston and then after those first 7 picks. Okay, so now I want to talk about some discard planning. So if we're now going into that third wall, it's going to become a little more risky with discards because people will have had time to develop their hand. You may even see people with exposures at this point as well, and you can start to figure out what people are playing. One of the things you could think about, if you're not playing wins, let those go first. That's a really great way to simplify decision making. If you're not playing wins, let them go. If you're not playing dragons, those can go next. The number tiles are going to be more likely in exposures with jokers, so you could even optimize your potential for joker exchange by holding number tiles. Another thing I like to consider is discarding the year tiles, and that's because I don't want to pay for the big year hand. That last single and pair hand, I don't want to pay for that. So I usually try to sabotage the year hands. If I'm not using twos and fives, I'll discard those first after wins and dragons. So there's just a little bonus on discard planning to maybe help you expedite what to let go of. And if you think about sculpting or with your masterpiece, you want to chip away at what is not supposed to be there, what doesn't work. For example, these tiles that I'm talking about here, if you're not using winds and dragons, let those go. If you're not using year tiles, let those go. And then look for isolated tiles and tiles that maybe are outside of your category. So focus just on your chosen category. Even if you have options, you want to focus on your strongest option, especially in the middle part of the game. And when you get to that middle of the wall, the middle of the middle wall, you want to narrow down to one hand if you can. Here's now talking about building. You should be at this point of building now instead of gathering. Sometimes you might still be a little behind the curve, but you want to start building your hand. Each exposure, though, is going to deepen your commitment to a hand. So if you have gaps, be very mindful of making exposures. You want to keep supporting tiles regardless of suit, narrowed to a category or hand, and then focus on the strength of your hand and whittle out some of your weaker options. You can't keep it all. Eventually, you're going to have to discard some option tiles, but just keep the tiles that are going to best support whatever the strength of your hand is. And just remember about gaps and weaknesses and plan your hand so that you're leveraging the strength of the hand. Also consider exposures and discards if you're in between. And if some of your tiles are going down for one of your options, let it go and choose the strongest option going forward if you're in the middle game. Claim a discard when you know what hand you're playing and you have no gaps. So if you're sitting there with a gap and someone discards a tile, you may just let it go until you have filled that gap, because you could be painting yourself into a corner, and we don't want that. In the end game, you're going to defend. And this is where you've got to decide whether you're going to push to win or fold and block. And it's just a mindset change. So don't consider folding a loss. If you end in a draw, I would consider that a win. So in Mahjong, when we fold, we don't throw in our tiles and stop playing. We actually break up our hand and we continue to play, but we play with a focus on defense. And you do everything you can to block your opponents from winning. So instead of thinking of folding as losing, think of it as your opportunity to end in a draw, which can be counted as a win. So survey the table, estimate the number of picks left in the wall, and if you have fewer discards than picks, play to win. So let's say there's 5 picks left and I have 2 discards, I should play to win. That's an example. Look for needed tiles in exposures and discards. So if I have 2 discards and 5 picks left, but my tiles are out and I need jokers, I probably should fold. But if my tiles are not out, or maybe only 1 is out, I should play to win. So make sure that you're considering what you see on the table and then decide whether you're going to play to win or fold and block. And also assess your opponent's potential to win if they have exposures. If they don't have exposures, you're going to have a hard time figuring that out. But if you see them with exposures, you should be able to figure out what they're playing. And then every pick from the wall in the end game, you're going to decide whether you're going to play to win or fold. So I want to just share this risk assessment matrix. And when you get a tile that you think could be risky, how do you know whether or not to discard it? And it's going to be dependent on the level of impact that it's going to create. So on the left here, we have the likelihood of a discard being risky. Is it going to have an improbable risk, possible risk, or probable risk? So let's say that you draw 2 dot and there are two out and you have one. That is going to be an improbable risk. But let's say you draw a three bam and there are none out and you don't have any. That is going to be a probable risk, especially in the end game. So think about what is out and what is in your hand and determine how risky that discard is going to be. Then you're going to think about the impact that it's going to create. And it's based on the number of exposures that your opponents have. If they have no exposures, any discard is going to have an acceptable impact, because you won't be able to determine what they're playing typically, unless you're a mind reader, or unless you can see that the tiles in front of them have never been moved, and you can use a process of elimination to figure out what they're playing based on the tiles in front of them. That usually doesn't happen very often. People typically will move the tiles around a bit. But if they don't have exposures and you discard the winning tile, don't be hard on yourself for that. That's an acceptable impact. But the more exposure someone has, the more unacceptable and intolerable that impact is going to be. So if someone has one exposure, that would be tolerable, because with one exposure, it's hard to figure out what they're playing. However, with 2 and 3 exposures, it's unacceptable and intolerable. You should fold and block if you get a probable risky tile. So the idea here is you want to stay in the low to medium area of impact and stay away from high and extreme, and use these to help you make the decision of whether or not you should fold or block one pick at a time when you're in the end game. You could commit this to memory, or I have a wiki article on this called Weight Patterns Matter, and this is in that wiki article. So I hope that you found that helpful. And the whole idea with all these 3 tactics, optimize, maximize, and streamline, about the push fold and whether or not you draw a risky tile, and if you're going to create a intolerable or unacceptable impact, it's all to help you play smart. The smarter you play, the luckier you'll be. And that is the goal with all these things. I hope you found this helpful. You can find all kinds of strategies and skill builders on my website. If you just go to MahJLife.com, I have a wiki where you can learn more about all these tactics. Does anybody have any questions about hand development and the 3 tactics? I'd be happy to answer any questions about hand development, hand choice. And I was hoping to end early so maybe I could demonstrate how this works.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to suggest too, because I think you gave a lot of information. I know we're all sitting here kind of absorbing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could share what you're going to play and kind of start to almost.
Okay. Yep. I will talk through it.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
let me share my screen again, and we'll do that. Here we go. Okay, so I play at Mahjong time a lot of times because they have scattered discards. And let's see if we can jump to a table. We should have plenty of time to play a game and then even close with questions. We're going to join this table right here. Oh, it's already started. Let's see here if I can join a different table here. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions? Oh, here's the table. All right, so we'll wait just a couple minutes for people to join the table. Let me see, I think I see questions in. Okay, no questions. Okay,
Maybe.
someone asked about what do you do when you have no pairs? That's where that maximize tactic comes in, where you would focus on a category that uses most of your tiles. And then when a multiple forms, that's when you would target the multiple. So let's see what we have here. And we're going to talk about the 3 tactics. We're going to talk about position. We'll talk about discard planning and push fold judgment, which is where you decide whether you're going to play to win or fold. So here we have 8 bam, 1, 3, 5, 8, 9 in cracks with a pair of threes, 5, 8, 9 in dots, north and south. So whatever we do, we're going to play with the 3 because that is a multiple, 3 crack. So we look at the rest of our tiles and we choose a category that will use most of our tiles. And in this case, I would say probably little odds. So I would let the 8, 9 go, probably pass, let's say the 8 bam, the 9 dot, and then probably the north, because I personally don't pass like numbers, and I don't pass, I try not to pass all of one category, for example. So 8, 9, we're going to let go of, and we're going to keep all the 1, 3, 5, and we're going to try to use the 3 crack pair. This would be optimized. Right now, we're not maximized because we've only got 5 keepers. So we're looking to gather. We're in gather mode. We targeted the multiple. So that's the first thing. We're optimized, and we're hoping to get 3, 5 for little odds, or maybe 2s and 4s where we can go into consecutive run, where we can streamline. So I'm crossing my fingers for 2s and 4s, but 1, 3, 5 of some kind might work. We might even be able to use this 9 if we get a 7. But anytime you say the word if in your head, consider that a long shot. So that 9 probably will go away unless we get a 7. That is a long shot to play maybe the first odd hand. I would instead focus on 1, 3, 5 of some kind, and I wouldn't even pick a hand. We have way too many discards to pick a hand, so we're just focused on the odd category at the moment. So let's see what we get. We got 3 and 4, so guess what? We're going to focus on 3, 4, 5 consecutive run of some kind. It doesn't matter what hand we're playing because we've got lots of discards here. Now, we did pick up a south pair, and we could maybe play north and south with 3s, 5th hand down under Winds and Dragons, but we have gaps. We have no north, and we have no 3 bam. So I would not even think about playing that hand. Instead, I would break it up and focus on 3, 4, 5 and maximize. So here we're optimized because we're targeting the multiple. We're maximized because now we're using most of our tiles, and we're streamlined. So we now have a power play. This is where we're using all 3 tactics. Here's a 2 and a 6. So now we have 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5 of some kind. We also picked up here an 8 crack pair, but we have way more to work with 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to break up the 8. Sometimes you'll end up with a multiple that doesn't quite fit with most of your tiles, and that's okay. Just break it up and let it go. So here I would either play 1, 3, 3, 5 little odds, or I would play some kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4. I wouldn't pick a hand, not yet. We've got 4 discards, so we have enough to work with in passing that we don't need to pick a hand. We're continuing to gather. So we're in gather mode. We're not building yet because we don't even know what hand we're playing yet. We got a keeper here, a 4 crack. So that even strengthens 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we still have discards, so we don't need to pick a hand. You really do not need to pick a hand until you run out of discards. So now here we have tiles we can pass, and we have either 1, 3, 5 or 3, 4, 5 of some kind. We could maybe pick a hand, second hand down on the right, 2, 3 dot. Let's see. No, that wouldn't work. It's 3, 4 crack. So I wouldn't pick a hand, not yet. Here's a 4 bam pair. Let's see. So we have 2 discards. Actually, look here. We have 5, 6. So we have 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot. We have a 9 crack here. We're going across, so we have to pass. I would probably let the 2 dot go with a 1, 9. although we could maybe do 2, 3, 4, 5. This 4 bam is not really helpful at the moment because we've got no flowers. I'd break that up and still focus on maybe even 1, 3, 5. So I would break up the 4 here. It's just not quite gelling with the rest of our tiles. We could do 1, 3, 3, 5, second hand down on the left, or we could do 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot. There's 2 hands with no gaps. And that's what you want to look for. You want to look for options where you have no gaps. So 1, 3 crack, 3, 5 dot, or 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot. We're still in the Charleston and we have discards. So technically we don't need to pick a hand yet. Here's another keeper. We have a 3 crack. So now we have a pung in there. Here's a 3, 4, 5, 6 also now. So we could do 3, 4, 5, 6 in one suit, second hand down under consecutive run. So here the player across from us wants to pass 3, and I would probably make a decision now and decide, do I want to play 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot, or 3, 4, 5, 6 in one suit, in which case we could maybe let the 3 dot go. So I probably would do that and give up on 1, 3, 3, 5, because we've got more options with consecutive run. And it's also streamlining where we have flexibility. If we get a 2, for example, we could do 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we have a 2 dot and a white dragon.
8 bamboos.
And we're now in the pick and discard phase of the game. So I would say we're an underdog here because even though we have a hand, 3, 4, 5, 6 of some kind, we're in between one suit and mixed suits. We've got 4 discards or 5 because we have options.
6
We're an underdog. So we need to take a low risk approach to the game. We're an underdog unless we get some keepers in the first 7 picks. Okay, so there's a 6 dot. Now we have another multiple. So that tells me I'm going to target that multiple. So we're going to do 3, 4 crack. We're going to pass on that because now we have that 6 dot pair. So I would focus on 3, 4, 5, 6, and I would say we have a hand and we have 5 discards. So we're still an underdog, but we have everything we need for that second hand down on the right. 3, 4, 5, 6. We know what hand we're playing and we have no gaps. We do have discards, so we're still an underdog. We need to take a low risk approach.
8 dots.
So let's see if we can get a couple more. There's a keeper right there. Let's let the 1 go. Here's a keeper now.
Character.
Now we have 4 discards and we only had 2 picks. So now we bump up to contender because we have only 4 discards. So we can now take a little more
2
risk.
dots.
If a tile goes down, we can call it at this point. Okay, now we have, let's let this year tile go here. We have a
2
5
dots.
crack pair that we don't need. We could even maybe play 3, 4, 5, 6 in one suit. 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 crack instead of 3, 4, 5, 6 dot. We're in between.
Characters.
We really have 1 discard before we have to make a choice. The 6 bam.
White dragon.
Let's just see what we draw. A 6.
6 bamboos.
Okay, so we have more multiples towards the
Southwest.
1 suit option. So I would probably leverage that and let the 6 dot pung go and play 3, 4 crack, 5, 6. Because we could,
8 dots.
let's see, we could pung the 5 crack and we could Kong the
6
6
dots.
crack. Here we could Kong 3, 4. We'd have to throw away 2 pair instead of a pung. I'd pass. I'd pass and go for the 1 suit option. And then these would become
West
discards.
wind.
So we're still a
2
contender.
dots.
We're now in the middle game, which is right. You see this middle number here, 80 tiles remaining. We're in that middle part of the game. We're playing 3, 4, 5, 6 in one suit.
Green dragon.
So we can, if someone discards, there's a joker. That's nice.
5 dots.
So we're doing a little bit better now there with that pick. We could Still pung 5 crack, Kong
Seven
6 crack. We
characters.
need one more good pick for that 4. There's a 6 crack out, so we're going to need to use a joker there for sure.
South
It would be
wind.
really nice to draw a 4 crack. Let's let the 6 dot go since nobody wanted it.
6 dots.
We have 3 discards, and because one of our tiles is out, I would still say we could probably consider ourselves to be a front runner here. Because if we get even one good discard, we'll be set.
North wind.
So I'd say we're a front runner here. If we can get one more good
7
pick,
characters.
we could push hard to win. There we go. Another joker. That's
6
lucky.
dots.
So now we have everything we need to pung and Kong. And I would say clearly we're a front
1
runner.
character.
So now we just are in a holding pattern for our tiles, whether they're discarded or we pick them. So let's see what happens now. We will only have
Red
2 tiles left and we're in the middle of the game. Let's see, nobody wants any of these tiles. There are 2 1 cracks out and there are 3 6 dots out. So we've got safe discards and we're at the middle of the game right now. So we're in a really good position here.
5 characters.
Okay, so we're going to pung.
Pung.
And now let's discard the 6 dot. Since it's out,
6 dots.
nobody wants the 1 either. But by discarding a pung
1
of
dot.
5s, I want to keep them guessing. If I think regardless of
8
whether I discarded the 6 or the 1, they may be trying to figure out what
White
we're playing
dragon.
either way. Okay, so 4 dot, none are out. So we're going to discard that first. So you whittle away
4
at what
dots.
doesn't work, and you want to also keep your opponents guessing. And try to hold a safe discard for your last
3
discard
dots.
that makes you ready to win. That 1 crack, I know nobody wants, so I want to
7
hold that. I
bamboo.
want to savor that as my last discard.
Pung.
So then I'll be in hopefully a waiting to win
3
position
bamboos.
once I let that go, knowing that no one's going to take it. Okay, so there are 2 9 cracks out, so that can go.
9 characters. 4 characters.
Okay, so that is a Kong for us.
Kong.
We discard the 1, and we're ready to win on a 6
1
crack.
character.
There's only 1 left, but we could also win on a discard,
dragon.
on a joker. So we could win with a 6 crack or a joker. And with these tiles here, everyone's going to
Red
know
dragon.
that we're playing consecutive run, second hand down,
4 characters.
but they won't know what we need because we could be doing
2
mixed
dots.
suit. We could be doing, let's see, actually, I think here,
White
this is the
dragon.
only thing we could be doing because it's a Kong
6
pung.
bamboos.
With a Kong pung, they'll know we need a 6 crack. We may need to win with a joker. Unless these
2
players are
characters.
playing to win, they may risk throwing a 6 crack. Because we have only 2 exposures,
4
they may think it would be an acceptable risk.
2 bamboos.
So we need 6 crack or a joker to win. And incidentally, I think, okay, and I would play to win. We're ready, and we're still in the middle game.
Flower.
That flower is a little bit risky, but there's 1 out. Nobody took it. And
2 bamboos.
at the moment, we have 2 exposures. I think if somebody draws a 6, they may discard it because there's 1 out.
4 dots.
Maybe they'll think, oh, they don't have a joker. Maybe they'll not be ready to win yet. Now this player
6
with a,
bamboos.
oh, I thought maybe that was it. Oh, another flower. So this player across from us has a 2 bam Kong. They are not going to need a 6 crack. So if they're playing to win, they will discard a 6 crack.
1
And
character.
because they made an exposure, that's an indication to me
Thousand.
that they're playing to win. The player on our left with a 7 bam pung, they might be playing consecutive run. I see
8
6s in
bamboos.
front of them and they threw an 8. I think they're playing odds. So they may discard a 6
4
crack as
dots.
well. So now we're going into the end game. This is the last 40
9
tiles.
dots.
So we're now in that final stretch. Looking for a 6 crack. We'll see who's playing to win.
Flower.
Okay, so they threw a flower in the end game. That's a little bit risky. It seems though that no one
Flower.
wants flowers. Nobody wants flowers. Apparently.
West wind. East wind.
Now that 2-bam is locked in. There's a 2-bam right here, so that is not available for exchange. I'm hoping this player to the
7
left.
characters.
Oh, are they playing? Ah, they didn't take it. I was thinking
4
maybe they're
bamboo.
doing like numbers. This player to our
1.
right, we don't know what they're doing. I do see a lot of 1, 2, 3, 4 here in front of them.
7 dots.
There's a hesitation on 7 dot. This player on our left, maybe they're playing big odds. Nope, they didn't take it. It looks like
8
somebody is
characters.
playing wins because there are not very many wins out.
Joker.
Uh-oh, that's a red flag.
8 bamboo.
Joker, and there's a lot of discards left. With a 7-bam pung, they could be playing
North
the
wind.
first odd hand, maybe. I suppose they could be playing like numbers as well.
8 characters.
Let's see. I see 3 7 dot or 7 cracks.
8 bamboos.
They might be playing like numbers with 7s, but
1 dot.
they could also be playing an odd
8
hand.
characters.
I don't see any
8
1-bams,
characters.
and I don't see any 3-bams out either. Oh, here's one. I bet they're
4
playing
dots.
1 3 5 7 9 in one suit. Uh-oh, this is going to be risky. I'm going to go for it.
9 bamboos.
They have only 1 exposure, so that was a probable
9
risk.
bamboos.
But with only 1 exposure, that is an acceptable impact if they had
9
1
bamboos.
with only 1 exposure. This is
North
where you
wind.
can use that intel to help you make that decision of whether or not to play to
7
win
bamboos.
or fold. With only 1 exposure, we still don't even know what they're playing.
Red dragon.
Now with 2 exposures here,
9 bamboos.
we may have people folding and holding our 6
3
crack.
bamboos.
They may have folded and they could be holding a risky tile. Okay, they just threw a 3-bam, so we'll let that
3
go.
bamboos.
We have 4 more picks.
Pung.
Oh, that's a
East
surprise.
wind.
And let's see here. No, that's locked in. That's a bummer.
9 characters.
Okay, we're almost done. I know we're at the top of the hour here. I'm happy to go a little bit over if you're all right with that. Let's see if we can get a keeper here. A winning tile. No?
7 dots. Pung.
Oh, they are playing like numbers.
Joker.
A joker. Oh, they're doing that Kong hand, but wait a minute.
9 dots.
That's not possible because there are 3 7 cracks out.
7 characters.
What else could they be doing?
Joker.
I'm kind of surprised at that exposure there.
3 characters.
All right. Oh, they could be doing 5 7 9 concealed. We need that for a pung, which we have. That's a safe discard.
1 dot.
We get 1 more pick.
Five characters. Joker.
I would say that's a fold.
Joker.
Yep. Oh, 5-bam. Okay, so we're going to throw the joker. Nobody could win on a joker.
Joker.
So we were waiting for a long time. Let's see who had our tile. So they are playing news with odds 5 7 9. Oh, ready to win on a 5-bam with a pure hand. Look at this. we just drew that 5 bam, this player would have won on a pure hand, no jokers. Over here, they folded, they have our 6 right there. They're doing, it looks like numbers. And over here, we have a little odd hand with dragons, 3rd hand down. So we got ready to win for quite a while, but with 2 exposures, somebody folded and blocked us. All right, so you were able to see the 3 tactics: optimize, maximize, streamline. We had a power play and we got ready to win. And I think we were a front runner for a good part of the game, but there was another front runner, that player with the odd news hand. They were ready to win on a pure hand as well. The other player folded and blocked us. So what do you think?
Well, I was going to say there was actually a question in the chat saying, when you say fold, does that mean that you just stop trying for a hand and you don't announce it? Right. Yes. Right.
You abandon your
I think
hand.
maybe that was asked before you played, but I think by you showing how you would play the hand and talking through it so much, I think it became kind of obvious of when they were throwing those jokers out.
Yeah, when you in Mahjong, in poker, you muck your cards and you stop playing. You throw your cards in and you're done. But in Mahjong, you continue to play and you break up your hand to discard as safely as possible to block your opponent. So when I had those 2 exposures, the person across from me knew that they had a risky tile and they weren't willing to discard that. So they broke up their hand and kept my tile. And we ended in a draw. So it was everybody won. Since nobody got paid, everybody won.
I like that attitude. Well, thank you very much. Is there
You're
any
welcome.
last question? Again, I will send out the link to this recording. I will also send out the links to what Michele, I'll do her website, where she was talking about those Wikipedia articles and also some videos that she has. So maybe now that you kind of looked it through. And then how would you suggest with the spreadsheets? Now, is this that we handed out, let people kind of think about it?
Yep, think about it and do the first side where there's not that optimize, maximize, streamline, and think about the way you played the game before you learned those tactics, and look at those dealt hands and see what the strengths are and document it, and then flip it over and do the exercise again, thinking about optimize, maximize, and streamline, and how you would do it a little differently with those other options on the back. And I'm going to send the answer key to Linda, and then she could send it out to you guys so you can kind of test yourself.
Oh, that would be great. Okay,
Yeah.
well, unless anybody else has another question, thank you, Michele, once again. Now,
my pleasure.
I like this, a program where we now have some homework, but since we all like Mahjong, it's a good homework. And with that, I'm going to end the recording and end this program. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.